Hey guys, David Farina here with Zion Surfboards in St. Augustine, Florida. Doing a ding repair tutorial for shred season. Now as you can tell, this board got a nice big chunk taken out of it. And here's the culprit right here. Leash string. Too long. Number one, it's important to make sure these things are nice and short so that the rail saver that comes with your leash prevents the string from taking a giant chunk out of the board. But anyway, there it is. This is the repair that we're going to do. Step one would be to clean any wax, any area around the repair. And step two is going to be do a tape off. Now I'm going to go ahead and tape this area off and I'll show you what it looks like. Now here's the bottom of the board. I flipped it over and you can see the damage is actually pretty clean. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and tape it from the bottom, and here's just the first piece of tape that I'm going to throw down, but I will finish taping this off and I'll show you the completed tape job. Alright, now you can see the completed tape off. One important thing, especially on this type of repair, is to make sure that the leash plug in here is sealed off. You don't want resin, because this is a close damage to the leash plug. You don't want resin going into that plug. Then you've got a whole nother issue. You'd have to drill that out and replace it. It's too much of a hassle. Just tape off the area, make sure resin won't get in there. What I'm going to do is mix up a batch of laminating resin with some white pigment and maybe some Cabasil, some filler, and basically just pour it in and fill this area up. And this is pretty much going to conclude for this first portion. We'll move on next to laminating the ding, then hot coating, sanding, finishing. So this first part is going to be filling it up, and I'll show you what that looks like next. Okay guys, here's my materials for this initial part of filling in that area, that hole. Some 249B Silmar laminating resin. Got it from the Surf Source in Jacksonville, Florida. White pigment, hardener, and some chopped fiberglass. I like adding that to the resin just to make it a little bit stronger. Most important thing when you're filling a hole of this size, or pretty much any deep ding, you do not want to add a lot of hardener. You want to add just enough to give it, of course to get it to kick off, but to give yourself plenty of time. If it takes an hour for it to kick off, that's fine. You just don't want it going off too fast, because when the resin heats up too much, it can split, it can burn, discolor the area around the ding, even burn the foam, make it kind of brownish looking. So it can get pretty ugly. So remember, just use a little bit of hardener and give yourself plenty of time. What I'm planning on doing, it's a Friday night, I'm going to go ahead and fill this in and kick it off super slow and worry about coming back tomorrow to grind it down. Alright, there's the mixed resin. I've added just a little bit of white pigment, enough to turn the resin white. One small scoop of the chopped fiberglass, just to give the resin just a little bit more strength. And only about 5 drops of hardener into this. And I'm going to just go ahead and pour it into the ding, into the taped off area. Now as you can see, I've poured just enough to fill it in. Make sure that it did not get into the leash plug. And that's it. I'm going to let it sit here overnight, and I will come back tomorrow and we'll move on to the next steps of repairing this ding. Alright, here it is next morning. I've already removed the tape, and as you can see, the resin is hardened and it is ready to be grinded. Now I'm using a hard pad with a 60 grit sandpaper to go ahead and get all this excess off and reshape the tail, and then we'll move on to laminating the ding. Alright guys, I'm back. Grinded this area down, got it all nice and smooth. You can see the two different tones of white. This board happens to be a friend of mine's, and he's done this before. This was a repair that was done earlier. This one was done now. I'm going to end up coloring the entire repair. I'll show you that little trick at the end after it's been hot coated and sanded. But it's grinded down now, and we're going to move on to laminating the ding. So I'm going to cut some cloth, and I will show you how to laminate this filled repair. Alright, the cloth is now cut and it's ready to be laminated. I've mixed up some catalyzed resin, but at this point, since the repair and the hole has been filled, from this point on, I like using Suncure resins. I think they're a little bit quicker. They make the ding repair go a little bit smoother, a little bit faster. But unfortunately, I'm out of Suncure for laminating, so I'm just going to go ahead and use catalyzed resin. We'll go ahead and laminate this piece of cloth over the ding, and once it's dry, we will move on to hot coating the repair. I like using a brush. I got a little bit of control, especially when it comes to these dings like this. It's kind of tricky doing it one-handed, so you have to pardon the shakiness of the camera there. But you get the idea. There we are, laminating the ding here. Just getting the cloth saturated. And we'll wait for the resin to dry. Okay guys, you can see here the lamination is done and it's dry. It's kicked off plenty of time, so I'm going to go ahead and hot coat it now. Now the next product that I'm using is just regular sanding resin, but it's Suncure sanding resin. And I got that from Surf Source in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. You'll see that at the end of the video where all the materials came from. But I like the Suncure hot coat resin. It helps it go off pretty quick. I'll be able to sand and finish this ding out, within the next hour or so. So I'm going to go ahead and just simply hot coat the repair. Just take my little brush, hot coat resin, and just coat the entire repair as even as possible. Just to kind of fill in the weave and to just make your sanding a little bit easier. And since I've only got one hand, I'm just going to flip the board over and do the bottom same exact way. Stick it out in the sun, and within minutes it's going to be cured and ready to go. Alright guys, here we are outside. The board's been hot coated. As you can see, it's obviously in the sun. I'm just letting it just get a little extra kick to it, but it is dry and it's ready to be sanded. Now, sanding this part, you can do it a couple ways. You can use I prefer a soft pad with 80 and then 100, 120, maybe even as much as 150. But I'm going to go ahead and use a block to sand this because it's actually pretty smooth and the repair itself went real easy. So I'm just going to block sand this and then do another hot coat, and then I'll show you my trick for finishing it off. Alright guys, now the repair has been sanded. I only took it to 100 grit because I like to do a double hot coat on my repairs. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Suncure hot coat again, the sanding resin. Go ahead and hot coat the ding and then sand it out with 150, probably 220, and then do the spray finish on this. So next step will be to apply another hot coat. Alright guys, the repair has been sanded to 150 and now sprayed with a clear coat. I use this Rust-Oleum clear matte finish, and I will probably sand the ding out to 320 wet sand, and that's going to do it for this repair. You could also use white spray paint to color match it if you wanted to, but I think this repair looks pretty good. Hope this helps. Thank you.